Alex Hormozi is ridiculously transparent about his business and helping entrepreneurs through his content.
I make these videos because I hope that you use this stuff, you make a bunch of money, and then you come and join acquisition.com so we can invest in your business. That's why I do it.
I watched every single content strategy video that I could find from Alex, and I ended up with pages of notes. And I mean pages. It's basically a book. To save you time, I've separated my notes into 4 sections that I'm going to share with you in this video. But let's start with Alex's most important question.
There's an unspoken question in every person's mind that has to first be answered. Why should I listen to you? And I think it influences how people share, how people take your content, everything. It's the frame that the content is consumed in. You have to do things so that you have evidence that you can support why you are good. And so I think it's really speaking on your truths rather than claiming to know the truth.
This is a recurring theme when he talks about content. It's an important question because we're all either thinking it consciously or subconsciously. He then goes on to say it's actually easier for us to find people who are successful because then we can let our guard down and just fully trust what they have to say. We don't question it. But this is the challenge that creators come against when they try to create content. You might ask yourself, how do I demonstrate authority, especially if I'm a new creator? Well, there's a few ways that you can do this. If you're new, believe me, this is one of the hardest things to do. One of Alex's top tips is just to do cool shit and document it. You either show proof of results, or if you're new, you show proof of effort. An example of proof of effort would be something like, I made 1,000 sales calls, and even if you sucked, you'd still be able to share because that in itself is a real achievement and something you could talk about in depth because you've actually done the work. You could literally just tell people what not to do in a sales call. Gives me a little bit of Thomas Edison vibes. If the thing that you've done isn't all that impressive, we'll just do more of it until it is. If 1,000 calls doesn't impress anyone, go 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 calls. That way, after you've done it, you've either got the results or you've got something pretty epic to share with people. There's actually 2 camps around the challenge of authority. One says that you need credibility or proof of something, and the other says that you can leverage authorities by using authorities to back up what you say. Really, the choice is up to you, but we're going to be covering what Alex believes is the best content strategy. When Alex is creating content, he uses the frame, how can I give your time back? It's almost poetic in how simple it is, but how much meaning it actually conveys. It means how can I share the knowledge or skills that I have that are either going to save you time or prevent you from making the same mistakes that I did. It's basically what you do in your own business if someone's struggling with something that you do and you're trying to teach them. Instead of trying to keep it within your own company, you just share it with the world. This is one of those key differences in Alex that sets him apart from the rest and why his content has gone so viral over the last few years. When it comes to reps, or what Alex calls volume, he blows away the competition. Something that sets him apart is how detailed he can look at his results, make informed decisions, and put them straight into action. By doing this, he's able to dispel myths and find a source of truth. After he analyzed his top performing videos, he found that they all had 3 core things that happened at the very start of each video. That is proof, promise, and path. Proof is proving that you know what you're talking about. Promise is telling them what they're going to get or learn. Plan is setting expectations of what will happen next.
In our situation is proof. Is the big Vegas lights of why should I listen to you? Sure, I want to learn more about guarantees. Okay, but why should I listen to you? And if you can answer that as quickly as possible, like the videos that, like when I looked at my top ones, it was just like, hey, I sold my company for $46.2 million. A big part of that was that we had a guarantee that beat all of our competitors. And so we did 4 things that we used that made our guarantee stronger. Done. And if that's what I said the video was about, they're like, okay, there's a promise of what he's going to help me do. There's a path. And I have proof of why I should listen to this guy. And so you want to have that. Like, what's in it for me and why should I believe you? And then the path, in my opinion, is just to show that there is structure and you can set expectations and then meet the expectations. I think that's more about watch time. The first 2 are about why should I stay, and then that's what's going to happen.
What really drives this point home is imagine if Alex didn't actually achieve the things that he did. Imagine if his business didn't exist. Imagine if Alex only had 1,000 subscribers on YouTube and he gave the exact same presentation. Would you still implement it? In the education space, authority plays a huge part. So getting this right is one of the most important things and why it's the first thing that I've mentioned in my notes. In an age where there's so much mistrust on the internet, building authority is one of the best ways that you can set yourself apart from your competition. If there's anything you get from this video, make sure you include those 3 Ps in any kind of content that you create. Alex being Alex, of course, is analyzed the data and is able to provide insights that we've never seen before. There's this theory in social media that you cast a wider net of content, you capture a larger audience, and that's going to translate into more money for your channel. and this theory's been around for a while. The thing is, it makes some really broad assumptions about the quality of viewers that comes through without really considering the impact. I'll let Alex talk about it in more detail.
And so we widened our scope in terms of our content with the intention of, or at least the theory behind it being, if we got more people to see our stuff, then if we catch with a bigger net, then there's still going to be more in absolute. So relatively fewer people in the audience are going to be business owners for me, but a larger absolute amount will be business owners if I go wider. And that wasn't the case. And so after we did that for, I think it was like 3 or 4 months, we just kind of like went pretty wide with the content. I made a college video, I made a relationship video, I made a handful of videos on like philosophy stuff that I'm into. And what happened was the actual objective metrics of the business, our opt-ins went down, book sales went down, but we got more views and more subscribers. And so it's really, really tempting to start getting into the vanity metrics of views and views, subscribers, followers.
Like you heard, the common belief is that you get more views, more subscribers, and then you're going to make more money. Alex was one of the first to make it public that this just isn't true. Not all views are created equal, and you really have to start thinking about views like actual people. Kind of rhymes. We're all different and we're interested in different things. If you'd never heard about Alex before and you saw one of his workout videos, you got interested in his content, you subscribed, you would probably not be interested in the rest of his content because it's all business stuff. The problem is that you get all these different types of people, but these aren't the people who are gonna buy your product. What really sets Alex apart from the rest is his ability to defy logic and test things out for himself. Once he saw the data, he just pivoted and went straight back to business. What was crazy is the result. His views halved, he did less edited videos, but he got more sales. He saw increases in the comments on videos, longer watch times, more subscribers, which is interesting, and more opt-ins on his websites. Even his book sales went up. He also looked at short form and long form content and made some really interesting findings. See, originally when shorts came along, there was a massive push for creators to start pumping out short form content. TikTok was booming and the rest of the platforms tried to play catch up. YouTube introduced shorts and creators saw their views and subscribers skyrocket. The premise was that you could bring short form consumers over to long form and get more views. This turned out to be untrue, at least for the most part. What Alex found is that short form users generally stick with short form content just the same way that long form users tend to stick with long form. But this next discovery is going to blow your mind. With the level of detail that Alex reviewed his content, he was able to backtrack and understand from his sales the proportion that each platform contributed to those sales and even the amount of time they spent on his website. He ranked YouTube an S tier. Anyone who plays Super Smash Bros. Knows all about it. The S tier represents a special or super grade, being the best one that you can get. YouTube made up 28.6% of his overall traffic. Actually, Instagram ended up on top with 48, but the traffic on YouTube converted 3 or 4 times the rate of any other platform. In other videos, he also alluded that longer form content was going to become one of his main focuses because they brought in the most applicants with the highest quality of leads. Here's what Alex had to say about YouTube.
So one of the things that actually got me on YouTube originally, one of the last pieces of content that I consumed before I was like, you know what, I'm going to start creating, was I heard this guy who had a 20-something question application, and he was on a podcast and he said, I get about 3,000 applications a month. And I looked at his YouTube channel and he had like 300,000 subscribers. And I was like, holy cow. Because at this point, all I had done was paid ads. And so I was like, 3,000 inbound warm applications. I was like, my God, if I had that kind of volume, I'd be able to do so much with that. And so when I saw the 300,000 and I saw that that translated into 3,000 applications a month, I was like, there's something here and I'm gonna try and figure it out.
Believe it or not, Alex didn't want to make content initially. He didn't want the fame or the problems that come with it, but it was after talking with his friend Dean Graziosi, who was an investor, that it changed his mind. Alex legitimately believed that becoming famous sounded terrible and asked if it was really worth it. This is after hearing that Dean had a stalker come to his house. Dean replied, if getting harassed and attacked is the price I have to pay for the impact I want to have, I'd pay the price every time. And with that, Alex set out on his journey to create. Let's move on to advice for small creators. One of Alex's suggestions for new creators is to go from wide to narrow content. That means being a big fish in a little pond. If you think about a company like Tesla, they were trying to sell electric cars where so many companies before them had failed. But what set them apart? They didn't go for the whole market of car buyers, they specifically targeted wealthy people who could afford them. Elon made it very clear that this was their strategy, and once they dominated that market, they could then roll out cheaper versions because they'd have the infrastructure to support it. On a similar note, once you've dominated your little pool, you'll be able to go to bigger and more general pools. Though based on what Alex found about the wider net with content, you might want to think twice about that. When you have no experience and you have no results, that's a hard barrier to overcome. If you've ever given your services or products away for free and people don't want them, that's because, as Alex says, people just don't think it's worth it. When I started my agency, I was offering to run people's ads for free and it was a hard sell. In hindsight, it's an important step to overcome. Just don't fool yourself into thinking that because it's free, people are going to jump all over it. Now, when it comes to making improvements in your business and especially your content, Alex uses a simple method for improvement that anyone can apply. You just need the data to analyze. His process is to pump out a large volume, in this instance it's content, and then assess it. He reviewed his top performing content, he looked at why, and then simply did more of that and less of the stuff that didn't work. And remember that this can apply to anything. You can apply it to your sales calls, to your emails, to your conversations. Heck, you can even apply it to making coffee. He also talks about the importance of quality over quantity, but that to get the quality, you actually have to do the quantity first. But there was this really great insight that I saw, and it only came up once in all the content. This insight actually came from Mr. Beast, who is the largest creator on YouTube to date, and it's all about the power of one single video that can go viral if you do it right. I'll let Alex take it away.
A side note for you guys is you'll notice the bigger the creator, usually the less frequent they actually make videos, and it's because they realize just power laws exist, which is that if you spend 10 times more time on one video, it doesn't get 10 times the views, sometimes you get 100 times the views. And so, like, especially platforms nowadays are so heavily reliant on quality. You create the quantity to figure out the quality. And so in the beginning, more people make lots of content, and then you start figuring out the stuff that works, and then you'll notice that they're like, oh man, well, we did spend more time on that video. Okay, well, if we're gonna keep making videos like that, I don't think we can make this money, but it's okay because you make it up on the fact that the total quality of that one, it gets shared more, people watch it longer. And I think Mr. Beast said this, but it was like, if you make 10 videos or you spend 10 times and you make that one video 20% better in terms of AVD or click-through rate, you don't get 10 times the views, you get 100 times the views. So you get a disproportionate return for quality.
Alex is the kind of guy who doesn't get lost in the sauce and focuses on just taking the next step. One of his famous sayings is, you're gonna suck, but that's okay. If you stick with it, one day you'll suck so little you'll actually get good. Your focus really should be on quality, even when you're doing quantity. He recommends cutting out all the fluff and getting straight to the point in your intros. That means 2 minutes is just way too long. In fact, Alex aimed for 8 seconds. That means your intro should be done faster than you can tie a shoelace. Another insight he had after reviewing his content was the clarity of packaging. He found that having clearer titles and images, meaning packages that you can actually understand, resulted in higher views and subscribers. So that means removing any razzle dazzle if it's just noise, and really being clear about what your title says and the thumbnails. Overall, just make it clear what your video is going to be about. Now, it wouldn't be an Alex Hormozi video if we didn't talk about mindset. In fact, a lot of my own practices have come from Alex because he's able to make complex things simple. Let's start with his content framework. When Alex first started making content, he had 3 objectives. His first is to make as much good stuff as he could. Second, to post it everywhere. And third, to learn as much as he could. There wasn't a goal of reaching 1 million subscribers, and even the time frame to achieve the results wasn't all that important. It was just doing the work and focusing on the actions that mattered most. There's a part in all of us just dying to know, when is my time, how long is it going to take, and I think Alex sums it up really well. I remember in one of his older videos where he talked about the concept of time, and then you could see how successful that person was going to be by the way that they perceive time. The longer their time horizon, the more aligned their actions were going to be. That's why he says not to think in years, but in decades. That's something that's already really hard for us to do, but when that time comes, it will show that you are planning ahead. Now that we've covered Alex's top tips for content creation, make sure that whenever you create content, it's clear to people why they should listen to you. Make sure you take the time to analyze your data, because the insights you get might transform your business. And something that I'm going to practice in my content moving forward is to emphasize quality, even if that means delaying my content to make sure it's good. Remember, in the beginning, you're going to suck, but that's okay. If you stick with content, one day you're going to suck so little that you actually get good.